My name is Emily. I am a third year at Trinity, Washington University. Today is April 22, at 1:28 p.m. And I am interviewing Brandi Garrett. Would you like to introduce yourself? Just say your name, the year you graduated, and what you were studying.
Okay, my name is Brandi Garrett. I graduated from Trinity University in 2003 with a BA in communications. And then I went on to attain a master's degree from Trinity 2005 with a MSA in organizational management with a concentration in federal program management.
Perfect. How would you describe your childhood and teenage years prior to college?
Hmm. Childhood and teenage years were a little tumultuous. My parents had a relatively unhealthy marriage. Um, they were both teen parents themselves, had children before they met each other. And then when they got together, they had additional children. And they actually didn't get married until I was about 9 years old. And then I'm originally from Ohio. Um, and they decided to I guess their way of like revamping their relationship was to solidify it with marriage, which I thought was a terrible idea, even at age 9. But they did. And then we relocated from Ohio to Maryland. They wanted a fresh start. My father had some family in the Maryland area. So from the age of 9, so about fourth grade of elementary, all the way through high school, I grew up in Laurel, Maryland. Um, and I actually had a full scholarship to go to a different university, but my mom had a stroke my right around my senior year of high school, and I decided I didn't want to go that far from her because the school was down south that I got the full scholarship to. So I looked at my next best offer, which was Trinity, and decided to stay a little closer to home. So Trinity was only about 30 minutes from my home in Laurel. So while I knew I didn't want to stay at home for college, I knew I wanted to be close enough to get to my mom if she needed help. So I schools and settled on Trinity. But going back to your original question, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do in life, but I knew I wanted to make a way for myself and I have to go back home because home life just was not very it was not a very healthy space. I'll put it that way.
Okay. Um, you did answer my second question, which was what brought you to Trinity and what was your first choice in college, but you didn't elaborate a little bit on the other choice that you had. So you want to
Yeah,
elaborate a little bit about that?
sure. And I mean that there is a little more to the story about how I landed at Trinity. So my and it really wasn't my first choice. It was just the best offer because full scholarship. Um, to the school is called Oakwood University. It's actually a HBCU and it's actually like Christian based. And I was very active like in the church and different church groups and things growing up. And so um, being involved in that capacity led to some exposure to people and things like that, where I was offered the full scholarship to that university, but that was all the way down south. So there were a couple of other universities that I was looking at in the DMV area, and Trinity was actually the first university that I went to for a visit. And when I don't know if they still do this, but I did a weekend stay. So basically, they had like some dormitories that were made available for weekend visits. And then we got to like meet with current students and tour the campus, eat in the cafeteria. And there were like host students that kind of like, hosted us to come and stay. And I met several other young women who were there for weekend visits as well that I formed like really cool relationships with that weekend. And then also some upperclassmen. And I just really, like I said, I had applied to probably 20 different schools, but that weekend visit really solidified it for me because there was such an intimacy to the smaller campus. And then I had never considered an all women's college before, but once I got there, I was like, wow, this is really cool. It was just, it was like a breath of fresh air. It just felt right. Like it felt right from that very first visit. And so I was sold right away just from that weekend visit. And then, of course, realizing that there were opportunities for me to pursue the degree that I was interested in, which was communication. At the time, I had a couple of jobs. At the time, I was co-hosting a talk show called Teen Summit, which was an international talk show on BET, specifically geared towards teens and the issues like current events, the issues that teens were dealing with. So I co-hosted that show, and I knew I wanted to go into communications. Thought I wanted to do telecommunications, but after exploring different avenues in the communications arena, I just settled for a basic communication degree, realizing that I prefer interpersonal communication more so than behind the television. So, yeah.
Okay, perfect. While you were studying at Trinity, did you have a mentor or a role model?
Um, so there were a couple of folks who really helped me navigate through my college experience. I am a first generation college student, so I really couldn't rely upon my parents to help me navigate through or really understand or balance college life. But I joined my sophomore year. I joined Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So there were several sorority sisters, like older sorority sisters, who took me under their wings. And One in particular is Dean Michi. She's still there now. She was at the time, she was one of the resident directors, and she was the student life um, coordinator, and then she became the dean of students, and like she matriculated up the chain over the years. But Dean Michi was amazing when I was there. She was definitely a constant over the years. And then some of my sorority sisters, and then there was a couple of college professors who were amazing. In particular, Dr. Jamie Pylan. She's one of the communications professors. I know she's still there. One of um, several professors who are still at Trinity. I bumped into her at reunion this past year. So yeah. So on the student program side, I would like faculty, I would say Dean Michi, and then on the professor side, I would say Dr. Jenny Pylan.
Okay. And how did they contribute to your academic and or personal growth?
So with Dean Michi, I would say again, she is a member of the same sorority that I joined. She was a great mentor in that light. And she managed a lot of the student programs at the time. And that's something that I was very interested in. I eventually became a resident assistant, got a lot of guidance and mentorship from her on that. I had a work study in her office. So getting, opportunities on the work front firsthand with her. And then a lot of the clubs and program things that we had on campus, she of course like oversaw everything that was happening with student programs. So I relied heavily on mentorship and guidance as far as how to not only participate but manage some of those extracurricular activities. I did student government. I was our class vice president. So I relied really heavily on her for guidance and running student programs, the organization piece, time management, and all of that, and how important it is to not only do programs for pay, but also as a form of service, community service. And then for Dr. Pylan, because I majored in communication, she was vital in helping me to, I don't want to say perfect my craft in communication, but really I learned so much from her on the communication front. There was some classes that I wouldn't have imagined fell into that arena, and some in particular that really, really struck a chord with me. We had a course called intergenerational communication where we studied the relationship between different generations and how the differences in the ways in which we communicate. So you're talking like maybe teenagers with, folks from the generation and their parents' age group, and then skipping above that, your grandparents' generation, how you communicate with folks from different generations. And that was amazing. And that was really a really big one for me because going into the workforce as early as I did, which I landed the career that I'm working now, I landed that at Trinity. And I can tell you about that later. I don't know if that question will come up, but entering the workforce as early as I did at age 19, I was working with people from all different generations and just learning how to effectively do that and how you almost have to code switch depending on which generation you're communicating with. So Dr. Powell played a major role in that, and of course, all of my required courses for my communication major, she was the one who helped me to navigate through that whole process, and that degree made a tremendous impact on my life and my career.
Perfect. Can you tell me about one or two historical moments that occurred while you were at Trinity that moved you emotionally?
Yes, actually, 9/11 happened while I was at Trinity. So I'll never forget this. So I was working at the State Department, um, and I was scheduled to go into work. I was working part-time. It was basically like a student employment program where they hired college students to work part-time while they were pursuing their degrees. So I was a full-time student and a part-time employee. And so my work schedule changed every semester based on my school schedule. So you know how it is when you plan out your courses for each semester, it can fluctuate the timing. So every semester I would change my work schedule to to work around my school environment. So I was actually supposed to be at work that day. But I think I had like a final. There was something that I had to do for school that I needed to call out of work for, and stay on campus and take care of. And so I called into work that day. And I'll never forget, at the time, my then boyfriend, now husband, because I met my husband at Trinity too. um, his sister was working at the Pentagon. I was working at the State Department. And as we know, the Twin Towers were hit, the Pentagon was hit. I don't know if you know this or not, but there was rumors that the State Department was hit too. There was rumors that a car bomb went off the State Department. So I woke up, I was doing my coursework classes and stuff, and then like the hysteria started. Everybody's like turning on the TV, everybody's getting wind of the news and everything. And so all of the students that were on campus gathered in social hall. We had an old floor model TV in there and some couches, and we were all just like huddled in there with the like glued to the news. All the phone lines were down. So you couldn't, your cell phone wasn't working, the landlines weren't working. It was just a mess. And so by the time I finally got in touch with my family and friends, they were so scared because they thought that I was at work because I was scheduled to be at work at that day and time. And they also thought that the State Department had gotten bombed because that was a rumor, actually. There was a rumor the State Department had gotten bombed. So thankfully, I was not at work. So I wasn't even in the midst of all that. From what I understand that day, the folks that were at work, like the train system was messed up, traffic was crazy. So people were like walking miles and miles and miles to get where they needed to go. So folks were like worried if I was safe. And if I was safe, how was I getting back to campus? If I was downtown, never. So I remember us all just being glued to the television, watching the news coverage. Folks were in tears, people were hysterical, parents were trying to get in touch with their kids and all of that. And it was just a mess. I was worried about my sister-in-law because she was actually pregnant and she was working at the Pentagon. And I think she ended up calling out that night too, or something along those lines. But it impacted a lot, and the way that we did business after that on the work front and the level of security or insecurity that we felt being right there in the middle of downtown DC, and seeing big portions of the Pentagon being missing, and everybody knew. It's like 360 degrees separation. Everybody knew somebody who had been impacted by that, somebody whose family member was either at the Pentagon or in New York at the Twin Towers, or it was just like a ripple effect. But I definitely remember that day. So that's one. You said two events.
If you can name another one, yeah. If not,
So does it have to be like worldwide or in like personal or?
it could be personal or like local, global.
So actually, I would say the next one is kind of a twofer, if you will, because it happened around the same time. I met my husband at Trinity. I didn't really date a lot in college. I was so busy I was working like three jobs. I was doing like I said, resident assistant, student government on campus, sorority, um, my studies, because I was on partial scholarship, had to maintain my grades and all that. So I was super busy. So dating, I would go on a few dates here and there, but it wasn't really a big deal for me. But I was dating this one guy, and he broke up with me a week before. I don't know if you guys still have Ozarks. You guys still have that? Like the spring formal
Mm,
at Trinity?
probably
I
do,
don't
but
know. Well,
I wouldn't know.
well, there was a spring formal that happened every year. And, being at an all women's university, as far as the undergraduate program goes, I know their graduate studies is co ed and everything, but undergrad, it's always like a joke, like you're going to meet somebody on campus. What are the odds? Because it's majority of women there. But this guy that I had been talking to broke up with me like a week before this dance. So I was getting ready the night of the dance with my friends who had boyfriends, and I didn't have a date. And I remember joking with them, and I said, I'm going to go down here and meet my husband tonight. And everybody just started because I'm like, girl, you're not meeting a man tonight because this is an all women school. So unless you bring a man, you will not have a man tonight. So I went there and I met my husband. The then head of security brought his brother-in-law with him to the event, who had just relocated to the area, which is the man that's now my husband. We met that night and hit it off, and the rest is history. We've been together 23 years, and this year we're celebrating our 20th wedding anniversary.
Mm,
Um, he's my
congratulations.
best friend. He's my best friend. He's amazing. We have a great relationship. We have two children together. Our oldest is actually about to graduate from high school next month.
Ooh.
Um, but like right around the same time, so I met my husband in March of 2001, and I also started my now 23-year career at the State Department that same month. So that was a March of 2001 was a huge month for me personally because I started my career and I also met my husband. And both of those happened at Trinity because I interviewed for my for my first position at the State Department on Trinity's campus. So,
That's amazing.
yep.
Let's see. Um, did you experience any challenges at Trinity as a woman of color?
Um, no, I can't say that my gender or race impacted me negatively at Trinity. If anything, I think the environment at Trinity embraced diversity. It embraced the celebration of diversity of minorities. When I was there, I would say the majority of students at Trinity was minority. So we had, Hispanic, we had foreign exchange students all the way from China. We had folks who were from the local DMV area, folks from, up north, folks from down south, Black, white, Middle Eastern, African. I mean, I could really run really the whole spectrum. Diversity was a big thing. And again, I would say the majority of students was minority. My first roommate was a Caucasian young lady. Um, we still keep in touch to this day. She ended up transferring to UVA, but um, That was interesting in that I don't think there was a disadvantage to having a white roommate, but it was a learning experience for both of us about how differently, like just culturally, like we live and we operate and we do things. Some funny little things like back then, like I have dreadlocks now, but back then my hair was just long and down. And so every night I would wrap my hair up and I would put a scarf on there and everything. And she would just look at me like, what are you doing? It's like I just go to sleep and when I get up in the morning and I just comb my hair, and I'm like, I can't do that because my hair will be like all crazy if I don't
Mhm.
wrap it up or, so culturally, like we learn, different things about each other. I think that was a beautiful experience learning. I would go out with, I minored in Latin American studies and I love the Latin American culture, the music, the food, everything. I've been in a lot of Latin American countries, so I would reward myself when I did my schoolwork. Um, by going out with my Latin American classmates. So we would do like there was like different Latin American clubs that had different themes for different nights of the week. So like Wednesdays, we did Bravo Bravo for salsa night. And then we would do another club on Thursdays for, it was like bachata. Then there was another club we went to on Friday or Saturday for merengue. But I like, if I got my schoolwork done, then I reward myself by going out with them. So like I had friends from Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, El Salvador, Chile, Ecuador, like the whole gamut. Like, so I would say to answer your question, no, specifically at Trinity, that was not an issue for me. I feel like I was afforded a lot of wonderful opportunities. Of course, the onus was on me to seize those opportunities. Um, and I had a great experience, and I don't feel like my race or gender negatively impacted my experience at Trinity.
That's good. What did you receive? Oh, sorry. What did you do after receiving your undergraduate degree from Trinity?
So, as I mentioned, I started my federal career while I was at Trinity. So, how that came about was I was working two jobs on campus. I had work study in Dean Meachie's office, working student programs, and then I also tutored in the Student Career Center. So I was a junior at the time, so I was tutoring freshmen in some of their like introductory coursework. So I went into the Student Career Center one day just to start my shift tutoring, and I noticed like there was like some older gentlemen in there in suits and stuff, and I just asked them, I'm like, what are these guys doing? Like, what are they here for? I'm like, oh, they're doing on-campus interviews for student internship programs for the State Department. And I was like, oh, I was like, is it by appointment only or walk-in? They were like, no, it's walk-in. Like whoever's interested, they're just here for like on-the-spot interviews. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll go interview. So when I got a break from tutoring, I went over and I interviewed with them, and that was in uh, the fall of 2000. Yes, the fall of 2000. And then I got notified December of 2000 that I got the job and I had to go through a security clearance process. And that took about 3 months. So my official start date was March 2001. Mind you, I had no plans of pursuing a career with the federal government. I just knew that that job had the potential to pay more than the three jobs I was working um, at the time on campus. So I'm like, I think this has the potential to make more money. So I'm going to try and go for this, whatever this is. And I just figured it was a means to an end at the time, because I was putting myself through college to pay for the other half of my tuition that wasn't on scholarship. So I started my internship in May of 2001. And the deal with this student program is you come in, you work part time, as I mentioned before. Your course studies are your primary obligation. So you do your school full time and then you arrange a 16-hour, at minimum work week. In the summers and breaks from school, you can work full time. So I did that. And then the deal is after you get a bunch of training and mentorship and all of that, if you do really well, your supervisor can recommend you to be converted over to full time employment. So when I graduated from Trinity, I had the option to convert over and become full time. But as I got engaged my senior year, I told my then fiance, I'm like, I know I want my master's degree and I know we're getting married. So I think I'm just going to continue school, work part time, continue with my master's full time, and then later consider converting over to permanent employee. So I did that. I graduated Trinity in May of 2003 with my undergraduate degree. In June, I started grad school. I just went straight through. Um, and then, so undergraduate completion was May 2003. I got married August 2004, graduated with my master's May 2005, and then I converted over to a permanent employee. But I still wanted to have flexibility while I was getting my master's, which is why I didn't convert over to full time immediately. But once I got my master's degree, I converted over full time. So the answer to that was a long answer to your question. I have since been working with the State Department for the past 23 years. I've moved around to a lot of different positions within the agency, but I've remained with that particular agency over the years.
Um, what does the world need to know about Trinity, and what does the world need to know about Trinity alumni?
Trinity is a beautiful, I think it's one of few remaining all women's undergraduate programs. So it's very unique in that regard. I would say that's probably the most unique. The women's only undergraduate enrollment. Um, Even though they opened it up for male enrollment for grad school and other degrees. My husband actually has his master's from Trinity. Um, so I think it's unique in that regard. I think the smallness, the size of the campus provides a unique opportunity for intimacy that you're not going to get from a larger university. There's a sense of community that I experienced that I will treasure forever. That time of my life, if I had to go back at any time in my life, I will go back there. That was the best time of my life. My college years at Trinity. And I think if I had gone to a larger university, I wouldn't have had that same intimate experience. I've formed some wonderful lifelong relationships, people I still keep in touch with all these years later. Um, and I would say, as far as what the world needs to know about the alumni of Trinity, we are not monochromatic, if you will. Like we are very diverse. People from all walks of life, all religions, all nationalities, races, sexual orientations. I mean, you're going to get a wide variety, um, um, a nice, beautiful array of diversity, which I think is reflective of the world that we live in. We live in a very diverse world, and so being in a space where the population is a reflection of what you're going to get in the real world. That's like your practice ground for what you're going to experience when you go into the real world. Diversity, and the fact that that is celebrated at Trinity is a beautiful thing, and I think it creates an atmosphere for people to not only accept that but celebrate it. And I think that's the type of energy that we need to carry with us out into the world. So many people frown upon, difference, but it's actually a beautiful thing. So
What is one vital piece of evidence you would give to a current or future Trinity student?
piece of advice.
Hmm.
Um, I would say to take advantage of all of the opportunities that are presented to you at Trinity, because it's not just about like your core classes and your major and your education, if you will. I think it's a whole experience. So um, I know sometimes it's a little more difficult, especially for commuter students, to be involved on campus. But if there is a way, I will highly recommend it for people to get involved because it just adds to the richness of your experience. It's not just, oh, let me go in here to my class, do my assignment, take my exam, and leave. you're going to get a better, more fulfilling experience if you're involved in what's happening at the university. Extracurricular activities, clubs and activities. There's so many options. Find something that works for you or try something different. Give it a shot. You never know. And you're going to form lifelong um, relationships, connections. There's been numerous times where I've had to reach back out to former college mates and even faculty and staff for different things over the years. And I've been able to utilize my Trinity network for that. But I wouldn't have gained that network had I just been tunnel vision on my academics. I had to spread my wings and also develop a social experience as well. So I highly recommend doing that. And it also, helps you become more well-rounded and helps you to learn how to juggle multiple things at one time, your time management, and things like that. So yeah.
Last question. What do you hope current and future Trinity students will do going forward to preserve the university's legacy?
Um, I will say I attended the reunion this past year and I was so disappointed that only like a handful of my classmates showed up. It was like heartbreaking because we had such a strong unit and we all keep in touch anyway. I think Trinity should do a better job of soliciting participation for reunion because being back on that campus and being around a few classmates that did show up, it just did something for my spirit. And it made me want to like, I don't know, like participate and continue to be in touch with the Trinity community. And I think in order for us to keep programs alive and fresh and for Trinity to also get like financial support and things from alumni, there's going to need to be a higher level of participation. And one of those unique ways is through reunion weekend. So I think there needs to be a little more work poured into reaching back out to Trinity alum to participate in alumni weekend and to make a more enriching experience. This past year, it was okay, but there really wasn't a whole lot besides, I would say, the luncheon that they had. I was a little disappointed in it. So I would suggest they beef that up and that they really go hard for getting participation from the classes to come back to that. Because once you draw, I'm telling you, like once you step foot on that campus, it's so nostalgic. It's like it just brings everything back to you. I think they would get a lot more alumni support and a lot more alumni involvement if they can make that reunion weekend a big deal and just keep like drawing. It's a magnetic experience. Just keep drawing people back in. So
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you for your lovely responses. Um, I appreciate getting to know you, and I hope that whoever watches this video um can get some more information about you and what you thought how Trinity was to you.
thank you. And I wish you well in your academic endeavors. And with the completion of, I guess this is one of your assignments.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, well, take care.
You too.